To be human is to move. Into all the places we're not sure we can go, but feel certain we should try. We're addicted to discovery, fueled by the challenge of navigating obstacles that sit between us and the unexplored. We don't take wall to limits. We build whatever tools it takes to leave them in the dust. And while we've shattered every idea of what's possible and familiarized much of the unknown, our drive for exploration still smolders. And we find ourselves pulled again and again to the wild places that stoke it. I'm Chris Cordes. I lead the Onyx Off-Road Trail Guide program, which is to say, I've turned my passion for running trails into a livelihood of mapping them. I credit much of my life's trajectory to this pursuit of exploration, and if my affinity for the open road has roots anywhere, it's in the American Southwest. Here, sprawling 20 million acres in the rain shadow of the Sierra Nevada mountains, you'll find the Mojave Desert, a place that's long tugged at the human spirit. Weaving through its 3,200 miles of open-use trails is where you'll find the famed Mojave Road and East Mojave Heritage Trail. Explorers venture here from every corner of the world, eager to join its community of off-roaders. It's a sort of pilgrimage, symbolic of the ones made to every outdoor collective that's grown next to wilderness. The places that still offer a tether to the unknown, and to whatever the unknown means to each of us. At the centerfold of the Mojave exploration community is Billy Creech, an insatiably curious adventurer with an unmatched dedication to keeping this place accessible. Billy is something of a legend. We swapped stories about breakdowns and misadventures around the campfire for years before we had the chance to finally explore this place together.
Oh no, it's obvious.
I've got to say, it lives up to the hype.
Take two. Oh, where's the clapper? I like to explore. I like to just see things that other people rarely see, right? And that means you got to get off the beaten track. And to do that and to really experience an area, you need to know about it. So the history, getting into the history of something just is a natural byproduct of that.
The Mojave's off-road community can trace its beginnings to Aloha Wanderwell's trip around the world, an endeavor that exposed the exciting possibilities of travel by vehicle. We'll let Billy take this one.
Aloha Wanderwell, the epitome of courageousness. So back in the early 1900s, dawning of the age of automobiles, she answered an ad where they were looking for an adventure. And she answered it. She's 16 years old. And she goes all over the world in an automobile. And she becomes this massive ambassador for exploration and for explorers. She showed what could be done in a vehicle, what could be done if you're willing to step out of that box and go, right? Just go.
Inspired by Aloha Wanderwell's passion to just go, the Wilhelm family pursued a similar ambition, to build a vehicle capable of traversing the inhospitable terrain that loomed in their own backyard.
Living in the Mojave Desert country, these cowboy mechanics constructed this queer-looking jalopy for traveling across the terrain in search of archery thrills. They know every high and low spot in this fascinating California area, and where they choose to go, they make Leaping Lena take them. There are few roads or trails, but that never bothers Lena. It's a little tough on the springs and human digestion, but when better desert cars are built, you can bet the Wilhelm lads will build them.
Lena was one of the Wilhelm Brothers off-road vehicles that they custom made. There were no guides on how to retrofit the cars. They just did it and did things to the cars with what they needed to do. They needed a vehicle to take them wherever they wanted to go, and Lena could do that. It had 2 truck transmissions, end to end, and Lena didn't have any shocks either, but it had torque coming out its ears. And I still today have not seen a modern vehicle that can do what Lena did. So at that point in time, everybody was trying to get to cities and more stable kind of employment lifestyles and building wealth. And the Wilhelms were traveling around the country trying to build wealth in a whole different way.
So long, boys. Happy landing.
The first off-road vehicles proved to be trusty tools in the pursuit of opportunity, and they became the catalyst for the adventure fever which was soon to take root.
World War II, the end of World War II, and the technology that was deployed in that brought four-wheel drive vehicles because of the surplus to the masses, and then people started seeing the recreational value in them.
For the vast trail system that gained the Mojave its notoriety as an off-road mecca, Dennis Casper's vision is really to thank.
I don't know that there's ever been or ever will be anybody who cares about this area to the level that Dennis Casper did.
My dad was stationed in the Marine Corps in 29 Palms. He was a Kansas boy, had never been in the desert before. It was totally new to him. And he was enchanted. He fell in love. My dad decided to hike the Mojave Road, the entire 130-mile length, because he thought that it should be a hiking trail.
He gets a lot of attention for that. Everybody's like, oh, he hiked it twice. I said that to Daryl Lynn, right? I said, yeah, you know, your dad hiked it twice. She goes, yeah, and he gets all the credit, but I was 9 and I was with him. And I hiked it too, and nobody ever talks about me.
My dad and I would walk the segments starting at Camp Katy out of Barstow, heading east to the river. He determined at the end of all that hiking maybe wasn't the way to go for the Mojave Road. So then he decided to make it more of a four-wheel drive exploration trail.
It took, and it became world famous.
My dad had the foresight to see that the desert was going to end up being overrun and overused. So then he developed the East Mojave Heritage Trail because the Mojave Road was becoming so populated. He wanted the population to go through other areas in a controlled manner.
Within, I would say 6 months to a year of finishing that route, and he starts getting word that there's going to be government activity that is going to potentially take away this route.
If the bill passed in its present form today, the East Mojave Heritage Trail would be destroyed. So passage of the bill today would essentially negate the work that's been done over the past 6 or 7 years in the building of the East Mojave Heritage Trail.
It happens, it passes, and it just gutted him.
President Clinton signed the bill into law this morning.
The Desert Protection Act was passed in 1994, which eliminated the East Mojave Heritage Trail for off-road use. That is, until 2017, when Billy set out to work with the BLM and the National Park Service on reopening access, and, in a way, restore the legacy of his friend Dennis.
You know, several decades go by, and Billy likes to do things in a big way. So he started trying to do the segments and determined that they needed to be rerouted, that he could do that. He could do the workarounds and make it active again and make it useful for people. And that just fired him up, and off he went.
The more I looked at it, the more I believed, and still believe, that it is the perfect route for a modern overlander, modern explorer, modern off-roader, if you will. It just became one of those things that, like, I have to do this. And I was not looking to enjoy the entire experience. I was looking to prove whether or not this route could be done and remapped compliantly. That curiosity drives, like, I have to know if I can do it. Can I do this? And it becomes a challenge. And, you know, if I'm gonna swing, I don't intend to miss.
Our desire to be immersed in unexplored places is what gives way to preserved microcosms of the unknown, like the Mojave Desert. Naturally, these places eventually sprout communities, aggregates of people who, once lured there, couldn't imagine a life lived outside their proximity.
The desert is that place where nobody wants to go. And you just can't imagine that people or things or anything survives out here. But at the right moment, like literally during this interview, where it's 79 degrees with a breeze as the sun's setting, and you look around and you actually see purple mountains and puffy white clouds, and the world is calm and you can hear wildlife around you, and the fact that you can experience and see history and experience history and live it, it's everything that I love in one giant sandbox.
Preserving access to public lands requires a relentless devotion to protecting them. They're living organisms in every sense, and their health ebbs and flows with the ever-evolving threats they face. For the Mojave Desert, Monsoon season is one that's contended with yearly.
And now the weather synopsis for the Mojave Desert and the southern Great Basin region.
You know, water runoff in a desert is a thing. And you really have to watch the weather because you can get into a flash flood from rain 100 miles away. So the monsoons this year were particularly destructive.
Monsoon storms taking a toll on the Mojave National Preserve again. Look at these pictures. This is an example of what can happen.
Roads throughout the park remain closed following the extremely rare 1-in-1,000-year event.
I think it was 2 months of intense rainfall. It wasn't every single day, but it washed out many roads in the East Mojave here. And so the challenge is, how do you keep track of what road is washed out?
It looks very substantial. The other thing is where you have damage that makes something substantially more challenging than what people thought they were in for. If there's a way around it, they'll find it. And what that does is that starts widening the trail. It starts destroying the fauna and flora. So it's important to get out there and assess these things to say, can we prevent that from happening?
At Fort Paiute, we're expecting to see potentially 3 washouts that are substantial enough. They're not impassable, but they're substantial enough that less than serious vehicles are widening the trail.
Yeah.
So we want to eyeball that, take pictures of that. If they're no big deal, I'll just take my shovel out and hammer them right then and there.
Eager and anxious and a little nervous to see how bad the actual damage is up here.
That is that's a lot more significant than I was thinking. So, yeah.
This is substantial. This is massive. 8 feet 10 inches. That'll swallow my truck.
Yep.
13 feet 3 inches.
1 inch from my line of sight where I was standing from the 25 over there. So that's 30 feet, 1 inch.
That's a big hole.
If this section gives, it'll be pretty substantial.
Essentially, it's directing you directly into the hole.
Yep. Okay.
And we reroute this right now and put the alternate on it.
Yeah, get that track updated so that everyone can know.
We need to get updated information on that route with the 14-mile alternate around to tell people that before you come up this, turn right and you need to go that way.
Yep.
People come from all over the world to do Mojave Road. What will happen is if people can't experience it, they stop caring about it. And all you're gonna be left with is people who don't care about it. And then it's gonna go away, like in a really bad way. If you don't take care of it, then a lot of the reaction is to just shut it down and close it off. That's probably the worst thing you can do for that environment. And so we're going through it.
Here are the 2 major washouts that we encountered today. So we're going to take the cutoff and that other piece and send it to the team. But what I want to do is first map out that reroute. We'll add that additional information to the trail and we'll say, there is a large washout currently on this trail. It can potentially get worse at any time with weathering conditions. There is an additional workaround and you can find it on this road name, and then that will be a separate trail that we would recommend. Okay, so then does that look like the proper reroute to you then?
Absolutely, 100%.
The more committed we are now to protecting our public lands, the longer we can retain access to them in the future. And not just in the physical sense. Ultimately, we're conserving the chance to satisfy our instinct to explore, a deeply woven piece in the fabric of our existence. The uninhibited joy of adventure is what drives our courage to overcome obstacles. Some will become obsolete with time and advancements, but will inevitably encounter new and challenging ones. Our responsibility for the foreseeable future is to harness our passion for problem solving and apply it to protecting access to these wild places. We need to foster a sense of collective ownership over the impact our actions have on the land. By repairing damage, dispersing trail use, and encouraging safe and responsible activity, we can preserve this fundamental part of the human experience, thus ensuring that we and future generations have an opportunity to just go.